Okay, here's my substantially modified Rickenbacker 370. I'll give you a real quick demo, and then I'll spend 15 minutes explaining what I've done. Okay, now on to the modifications themselves. The first and simplest, most boring, is that the four controls have been moved from the Rickenbacker positions to the Gibson positions. The Rickenbacker positions are more logical, but this just is what I'm used to. It works out well for me. Modification number two, Rickenbackers have a fifth balance control. I never used it. I left it set on 10, so when I rewired the guitar, I took it off. It turns out that when I studied the schematic on the Rickenbacker website, I noticed that it's wired such that it actually decreases the output and the treble content of the rhythm pickups, even when you have it on 10. So now that I've taken it out, the rhythm settings on this guitar are a lot louder than stock. The verdict of this change, I'm not exactly completely pleased. The problem is that the Rickenbacker bridge pickup is quieter than the rhythm pickups for whatever reason. And when you switch between the two, you notice a big volume discrepancy. Now, the normal way to adjust this, if you don't have this balance control, is to just turn down your rhythm volume a little bit. Unfortunately, when you do that, as on most guitars, it also cuts the tone out a little bit as well. So here's a demonstration first of the tone of the volume variation I have right now. That's just switching between the neck and the bridge pickup. You notice quite a bit of a difference. Now, if I turn the bridge down or the neck pickup volume down so that they match, then unfortunately it starts cutting out your rhythm, your neck pickups treble, which is not what I wanted. So I'm probably, if I ever rewire this guitar, I'll be adding a bypass capacitor to the volume controls, which is designed to, it's a common modification to keep the volume from getting too, keep the tone from getting too muddy when you turn on the volume. But I may never do that, and what I may be doing instead is just adjusting the volume on the amplifier itself slightly. Okay, the third modification I've made means an awful lot to me. A Rickenbacker is normally strung with the big string, little string, big string, little string in the octave pairs. I think you can see here that this guitar has actually been strung instead the standard 12-string way with a little string, big string, little string, big string. I can say that it's a lot easier to play for me. When I first got this guitar, first year I had it actually, I sounded extremely sloppy when I played it. I sounded like a novice. My fingers were always accidentally muting the next string down on the neck. I thought it was probably because the neck was too narrow. Now maybe the neck's too narrow for me, but now that I've restrung it, I find that I don't really have this muting problem anymore. I've prepared a couple of diagrams that are supposed to show why, but I can say two things. Number one, at the very least, it's what I'm used to from playing regular 12 strings for 20 years, and it's a good thing. It's more comfortable that it's returned to how I'm used. The second thing is that, ergonomically speaking, it may actually be better for everybody to have it strung this way. I haven't done a big study of it, but I prepared these diagrams that may show you what I'm talking about and why I think that might be true. This isn't a change that I'd force anybody to make, but it's something that I think everybody should think about, especially if you have problems accidentally muting strings. This might be the solution for you. Okay, at the same time I had the new nut cut to fit the new string ordering, I also had to cut a new bridge. And when I cut a new bridge, I didn't get a new 6 saddle bridge. Instead, from the Rickenbacker website, I get a 12 saddle bridge. This allows the intonation for each of the 12 strings to be adjusted individually. Now, for the top strings, you don't actually need to do that because they're the same pitch. But for the rest of the strings are wildly different widths. They bend differently, and this really needs to be set in very, very different places to have the intonation correct. The way it used to be is by the time you got to the 5th or 7th or 9th fret, the two strings would not be in tune with each other. One would be sharp, one would be flat. They wouldn't match each other. They wouldn't match the rest of the guitar. They wouldn't match the musicians you were playing with. Now that this has been rewired, you can play it as high on the neck as you can reach, and it actually sounds in tune. I don't have it dialed in perfectly yet, but here, that should be a demo right there. That's at the 19th fret, and it sounds pretty spot on. It's for me, I even think I hear a difference even when you're at the 5th or 7th fret. It already sounds better than it used to. Even playing stuff like this sounds better to me than this guitar did with the old bridge. There's 2 potential downsides to this. Number one is that many people will tell you that the simpler a bridge is, the better it will let the strings and the guitar resonate together, and that a more complicated bridge will make the tone slightly less clear, and it may decrease your sustain slightly. In fact, the CEO of Rickenbacker, I think, has the same opinion and has said publicly that that's why he ships the bridge with the 6-piece, 6-saddle bridge. He ships the guitar with the 6-saddle bridge instead of the 12-saddle bridge. My personal opinion is that those guys may be right, but the hollow body Rickenbacker's never been the king of sustain anyway. The sustain still sounds fine, even with this bridge. So I don't feel like I'm missing any sustain here. The second caveat I've got to make is that the way this bridge works, for each string you have a screw that goes through a hole on the bridge, then goes through a movable saddle, then goes through a third hole. These 3 holes are not in a perfect line. These 3 holes are slightly curved, which means I had to bend the screws with a pair of pliers to get it to fit into that hole. Because of that, it was under a lot of tension, and it was very, very hard to turn to adjust the intonation up and down. In fact, I couldn't even do it with the pickup in place, the bridge in place. I had to take the bridge off, adjust it a little bit, and put it back on. Now, this may not be a manufacturing fault. It may be that this high tension actually keeps it all together, keeps it held together very nicely, and keeps it vibrating as one unit. So it may be a good thing. It ships with a spring on each string. These springs were too long for about half the strings. I had to cut them in half, or in one case just remove it entirely. And because of the tension that I just mentioned on the screws, you may not need the springs anyway. The verdict I've got is that every Rickenbacker should really have this bridge. If you've got 12 strings, get this bridge. I can't imagine a change that would make a modification that would make a bigger improvement to a guitar. Okay, modification number 5. Rickenbackers are traditionally used for trebly, jangly parts, and people seem to want the guitar to be as trebly and jangly as possible. A second problem is that the pickups, even these high output pickups, have a little bit less output than most of my other guitars. So I find I have to turn up the amp an entire step, like from 3 to 4, when I switch from my Gretsch to this guitar, for instance. Now, to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, I've installed what's usually called a no-load circuit. No-load circuit removes the tone controls from the circuit entirely. I've taken that to a next step and actually had it remove the grounding from the far end of the volume pots as well. That means that the volumes no longer go down to 0, instead they only go down to about 5. But it actually means that this no-load circuit has twice twice the no load than a normal no load circuit would. And since we don't have that balance spot in the circuit anymore, this guitar is a lot fiercer than stock guitar. I'll just give you a demonstration here. Standard 370 mode, all three pickups, just a E major chord. We'll play it a couple times with the no load activated and then turned off. Here's a little arpeggio. Let's do the arpeggio with just the neck pickup. Okay, so I hear a huge difference standing right in front of the amplifier. I don't know how big of a difference you hear on the internet, but two things to keep in mind. First, the difference would be even bigger if I still had the balance pot on the guitar. And second off, due to a part snafu, I actually have 500K volume potentiometers right now instead of the stock 330K potentiometers. That actually means that when I have the no-load circuit out of operation, in other words, as close to stock as possible, this particular guitar, due to this small mistake with the parts, is actually has a bit more treble than a standard Rickenbacker 370 would. So once more, I'll just run through 4 chords here. With neck and bridge pickups. This is with the no load activated. Then out of circuit. Okay, would I recommend this? Well, yeah, because you can always turn it off if you don't need it for a particular song. But to the extent you want your guitar to cut through, this will make it do so. Some people complain that the guitar sounds a bit too much like an ice pick. Maybe it's a bit too sharp. But I say it's just like having volume and tone controls that go to 11. Maybe 10's enough for you. If so, just take the modification out of circuit and you're fine. I'd also like to mention that this is not the same as just turning up the treble on your amplifier. This is actually adding higher frequencies to the guitar's output than it normally would have. So there's no way to duplicate this just with amp controls. Okay, modification number 6 is probably the most complicated to explain. Most guitars come in 2 pickup and 3 pickup variations. The 2 pickup guitars usually a little bit cheaper, a little bit lighter, and since there's less carving involved, it might actually resonate just a tiny little bit better. But people like me get the 3 pickup model anyway because it looks, at first glance, it looks like it should be a lot more versatile. But in practice, these guitars have a 3-position pickup selector switch, just like the 2 pickup guitars. So you've only got 3 choices to choose from. They're different choices than the 2 pickup guitar. But it's not necessarily more choice, it's just different choices. So what I've done, I've left this switch working just like the stock Rickenbacker pickup selector. This switch controls when the rhythm pickups are selected by the main switch, whether you're going to hear the neck and middle, or just in the middle. That's one way to say it. Another way to say it is you just leave this up and the main switch works just like a Rickenbacker 360. Put this in the middle, the main switch works just like a stock Rickenbacker 370. Put this down, the main switch gives you, again, a bridge sound, bridge and middle, and then just middle pickup. So I'll give you a demo of all 7 sounds. Now, no matter where this switch is, if this switch is down, you've got bridge pickup only. So instead of being a total of 3 times 3 equals 9 settings, you've actually only got 7 to choose from. But I'll go ahead and demo them. Let's go ahead and, as a bass line, I'll just play you the stock 370 sounds. Oh, sorry, this is the bridge pickup. All three. Okay, now just mid and neck. Okay, now let's just hear the neck only from the 360. Okay, neck and bridge from the 360. Okay, then this guitar's unique setting of bridge plus middle. Now let's just hear middle only. Okay, I just ran through all of those actually with the no load features off, so let me do it again. No load features on. I'll do them in the same order. Neck. Here's neck and bridge. Then the two new sounds. Here's bridge and mid. Then mid only. Okay, so that's all 7 sounds. Question is, would I recommend this change to anyone? I don't know. Having 2 switches like this, I think it looks kind of stupid. I've had the guitar back a week, and I'm still not completely used to which one's which. I'm reaching for the wrong switch fair number of times. That said, the 360 sounds are fantastic. The neck only is beautiful, and thanks to the no load feature, not only does it have bottom end, but it's got a heck of a lot of top end. It's got more top end than a bridge pickup from a standard 370. So I really like the choice between these 3 settings, and I'll just play some chords real quick. Here's neck only. Neck and bridge. Then treble again. I think with just these 3 sounds I could be happy. So what I'm going to do is probably just leave this more or less always in the 360 setting. If I feel experimental or I'm looking for the absolute best setting for a particular song, I might go back to the 370 settings or the 2 special sounds with the bridge in middle or the middle by itself. As a matter of fact, I actually like the sound of the middle by itself. That's pretty much all I use on my Stratocaster, and it's growing on me already on this guitar, so I'm glad I have it. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up all the changes themselves. What I can say though, in addition, is generally speaking, is this is a really easy guitar to work on because all the controls are on this pick guard, and the pick guard does not attach to the pickups or get under the strings. So you can leave all the strings intact. You don't have to detune it or anything. You just remove the screws. You can actually open this up while you're playing it. Adjust a capacitor, try a different capacitor or a different resistor, what have you, while you're playing it. And then shut it up again once you like it. Second, there's a big wood hole back here on the stock guitar so that no matter where you want to put the controls, you can probably do that without routing the guitar out, without cutting the actual wood of the guitar in any way. So personally, even with this setup, I still have the original pickguard in the case. I haven't made any alterations to the wood at all, so I can restore this guitar to stock condition anytime I want. Okay, in summary, I think that these guitars have really changed this guitar 180. These changes have changed this guitar 180 degrees. Used to be maybe the most charismatic guitar I had on my rack, but every time I picked it up, I would be very, very aggravated by the fact that I couldn't play it without accidentally muting strings. Anytime I went high on the neck, the tone, the intonation would go sharp and flat at the same time. The volume, it just didn't have the volume output, and the tone seemed a little bit deader than it needed to be. These changes have made it as attractive to play as it has been to look at for the last year. I'm really happy. I'd recommend these changes. All in all, I'd recommend at least 4 or 5 of them to anybody. Thanks for your time.